Well, it's 2022. Another year has come and gone. And darn it, those New Year's resolutions aren't quite working out the way you hoped. Well, there's good news. We are having a Take Control of Your Health 3-day virtual summit to bring in the leading experts on the 5 pillars of health. That's sleep and hydration and exercise, food and nutrition, and mindfulness. You are going to hear and see things you won't find anywhere else. So head on over to www.tcoyh.org and get signed up. Let me guess, probably a couple $1,000. Nope, for free to learn from the world's leading experts on those 5 pillars of health. So hurry on over there. It starts January 14th at 9 a.m. So head on over to www.tcoyh.org and get signed up for free, and we will see you on the inside.
We had cooking classes to show them, how easy it is to make these simple things. And like you say, one apple, make your apples organic, make your fruit organic, add fruit to your diet. I mean, there's just so many basic steps that people don't do. And there's some other very good complex health advice that I can give when I'm working with people. But again, just a step, just add more water, eat an apple a day. It's again a good way to get started.
Welcome to the Miracle Plant Podcast, the show that inspires, promotes, and gives you a daily dose of inspiration from the people who have used cannabis to change their lives in extraordinary ways. Here's your host, Justin Benton.
Welcome back to the Miracle Plant Podcast, where we discuss this miracle plant with so many names and how it's helping people around the world in so many extraordinary ways. Well, you know what's coming up. We got ourselves the Heal the World Live. And today we're going to be talking about the first pillar of healtheworldlive.org to get signed up. And that first pillar is food and nutrition. And we have got some amazing speakers that are going to be joining us on that day, that we go all the way down the rabbit hole and give you all of the insights of the latest research. Some of the research goes back thousands of years. Some of it's even a little newer than that. But we're really going to help people understand their bodies, understand how our bodies work with food, and how the food really is our medicine and the building blocks for living a great health. Today, we got my mom, Janet Van Gaillard, on, as well as Dan the Man. And we're going to talk a little bit about the food and nutrition pillar. And I know my mom has written books, and I will defer to her to get started on talking about just how important is food and nutrition to living a healthy, happy life. Take it away.
You betcha. Another great morning here. So food and nutrition are huge, complex areas that I could talk on for hours. And so I'm just trying to summarize some of the highlights and basically focused on the problems that people come in presenting with significant health issues. And so one of the major steps to getting healthy is you have to go back and see what you're putting into your body. And is what you're putting into your body something that makes it better or worse? And many people just don't get any kind of in-depth nutrition. And then some of the nutrition that's taught isn't always, in-depth enough to give people a good sense of their day-to-day diets. And our food pyramid isn't much help anyway. I personally don't agree with the food pyramid and some of the things that they've added to it. So anyway, if you have any kind of health issues, or especially if you're raising children as babies, and if you have a child like with autism or something serious, to me, one of the most basic steps is to switch to an organic diet. Starting at the very basics, our bodies have never dealt with the pharmaceuticals and the chemicals and the neurotoxins and the carcinogens, like in Roundup and phosphate. Our bodies just really aren't set up to deal with those. And often when our body doesn't recognize or doesn't know what to do with something, it's unfamiliar, they literally create fat cells and put it in there. And so a lot of us carry extra weight just because of things our body can't break down enough to actually flush out of the system. And that's beside the harm that many of those things can do. And you hear lately about some lawsuits against like Roundup, but it's still everywhere in everything we eat here unless you eat organic. And so I remind people, every bite you eat that isn't organic, you are taking in herbicides and pesticides and heavy metals and the neurotoxic chemicals in there and the carcinogens. In other words, it's causing cancer. And all in terms of like our focus on autism, when we started the business, uh, Roundup literally passes the blood-brain barrier and can therefore damage neurons in our brain. So it's just incredibly hard to actually get super healthy from any kind of major disease in your body, including cancer or any neurological disease, such as seizures or autism or Alzheimer's, MS, all kinds of diseases that are neurological. And so it's very important to, again, avoid organic. And at this point, almost every store around has plenty of organic options. I know one of the talking points of the chemical industry is that organic is too expensive or it's just for wealthy people. And I've raised all my kids on it. And you just, like any good shopper, you buy things that are on sale. You look for, basics and order them in bulk, things like that. But truly, my average grocery bill was no more than like $10 more to buy organic foods than it was to buy the non-organic food. So do not please let that be a stopping point in going organic. And so I could talk forever about that, but it's just so critical, and especially if you've got any kind of health problem, and especially any kind of neurological problem, it's just critical to be organic. And the organic, by the way, also extends to things like our beauty supplies, things that we rub on our face that literally get into our skin, are things like sunscreen. We've been hearing a lot more about how sunscreen is actually a carcinogen. And then take it the step further in terms of like they make clothing now that's organic, and especially bedding that you're in every night, if it still has been processed with all the chemicals. They use that glyphosate for things like spraying things when it's harvested, before it's harvested, and so when it's transported. So just be very, very careful. In clothing especially, so many of our clothes come from other countries. In fact, I think the majority of our clothing comes from like China or something. And to able to transport it, they have to spray it again with Roundup and things. So just be very careful. We've gotten kind of complacent or just unaware of how harmful all these non-organic things are. So again, to do your research, and that's a great place to start. And then one of my other next pillars or whatever of health is basically our disease states all start with digestion. If your food is not fully digested, so it's small enough in the right forms, like breaking proteins into the amino acids that our bodies can absorb, then we start building up problems because our body is not getting, say, nutrition in your brain. Then pretty soon problems increase and increase from there. And your body will let you know that, because that's when you get a disease state, when you're not being able to digest things. And so one of the big things there is just be careful of, if you're healthy, I say eat whatever you want. But if you've got illness, especially severe illness, then you need to look at food that is not hard to digest, and also food that has high nutritional content. And so we're so used to it, so easy to grab a bag of potato chips or run through McDonald's or have some pop or something. And when you're sick, you just can't not keep being unaware and not doing that. So one of the most important things to do with a severe illness is juicing. And juicing is basically you put your fruits and vegetables in a couple different kinds of juicers. You put it in there and it comes out. The fiber's gone and it's now considered pre-digested. So you just have to swallow it and your body immediately knows how to use it. It goes right where it needs to go in the body. And juicing, by the way, is different from smoothies, which have become super popular. And so smoothies is where you throw many things you have into a blender. So the fiber all stays there. Everything is still there. It's just whipped up and easier to drink. So the juicing is literally just actually where just juice comes out, it's separated. And again, too, it's really important when you're juicing, again, to get organic fruits and vegetables so you're not concentrating the negative chemicals into the drink that you're doing. And so again, too, these are all like full day courses or whatever on eating healthy. And then specifically related to autism, I like to point out too that, for instance, our enzymes are made in our pancreas. And if we don't have a healthy enough pancreas, then we aren't getting the right enzymes too. We need to break down everything. And when you're eating hard to digest foods, you're using a lot of the enzymes. And if our enzymes all have to go to digestion, the enzymes then aren't available for repair. And if there's not enough enzymes, or again, too, if our amino acids aren't broken down enough, our brain can't even use them. I mean, our body is very complex and very intelligent and spent however long we've been on Earth to develop a finely tuned, balanced working system. And we've kind of undone a lot of that benefit, kind of like climate change, just by thoughtlessly thinking our technology or our man made products are better. So our bodies are also suffering their own climate change, or trying to deal with what we're putting in it, trying to figure out how to use it, and trying to stay healthy in spite of what we put in there. I'll just cover one more area again. So just important: organic juicing, uh, easy to digest foods. And then realistically, to get healthy, you really have to go plant based. And I know vegan and plant based have become like political terms, or just all kinds of weird things thrown on about it. It's just when you're eating plant based foods, again, too, they're easier to digest, they're more nutritious. Our Just by looking at our teeth, you can tell that we don't have tiger teeth to be eating lots and lots of meat. And then meats and cheeses and dairy and things are, again, very hard to digest. They're very mucus producing. They increase inflammation. There's just not a lot of good things to say about them. If so, in moderation, whatever that means. So not too much of it is fine if you're healthy, but whenever you're not healthy, again, go to that very basic, just a plant-based diet. And I've been doing that since too many decades to mention. It used to be very, very difficult, but now just in the store at Target, I order my groceries from Target and I get a wide range of plant-based foods. So there's not the excuses we used to have that it's too hard to find it or it takes too much time to cook. I saw even McDonald's has added vegan burgers. And I mean, the word is out that people want plant-based foods. So again, too, just in summary, if you can just go ahead and get your organic food in there, get in some juicing and limit those hard to digest fruits and vegetables, you've made a huge improvement toward your health. So that's just a quick overview of some of the very basics of eating a healthy diet for your health, and especially if you're suffering from ill health.
Great stuff. And again, how did you learn all this information? What qualifications do you have?
For one thing, too, I was just always interested in that. My mom was kind of an herbalist, and we were kind of holistic growing up, and so I picked up that aspect always. And then I worked as a holistic health coach or holistic person for many years, but I also have studied and got certifications. Like my last one was at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York City. And at the time I did my last certification there, at least 10 years ago, already 50,000 people had gone through that school. So it's a very well respected school. And so that integrative nutrition certification also went in depth to everything and related to diet. And then I'm also a researcher, so I spent my life doing research and, our PubMed published research. And diet and nutrition have always been very obvious to me that they're critical for health. And I think we mentioned before that my husband had cancer and was given 3 months to live with tumors. And I did help him, and he got better. He lived another 23 years after that. And a lot of that was, too, believe me, I was doing intensive studying. Uh, and I've had several issues like that in my family with health issues that led me to even more and more intensive studying. So beyond any kind of like school training or whatever, a lot of it's been experience. And then so I've worked with people with health now for several decades also. And so again, too, it's just always been one of my passions, because it just became so obvious to me, even as a child, that what you ate was important. So those are basically it. And then working with the CBDA, working with the hemp in the last few years too, I spend a lot of my time just focused on researching disease states and researching solutions and researching dietary benefits. And then the other one is just working with the people I've worked with for the last 30 years with health issues. You just learn over and over the things that work. And so most of what I talk about now is the things I've learned through practice, things that work, I see work and I see success with, and then back it up with research.
Sounds good to me. And I know we'll have some more books coming out, and so stay tuned to get your hands on those. coming from her, and we'll going to co-write a book or two as well. So great stuff. Another thing on the food and nutrition pillar I wanted to touch on is, we all have these, ways of talking ourselves out of, a certain thing or what we should do or shouldn't do. And, for example, like, oh my God, organic food is so expensive, or it's so hard to find, or whatever the excuse is, that the rationalization, as Chris Rock said. He was a stand-up comedian, and he obviously he goes a little blue and a little R-rated, but basically it's like, you think you can give up one thing, think about the hardest thing that you can possibly think about giving up for one day. And then he goes, you think that's hard? Think about giving up rationalization for one day. And so one of the rationalizations with organic food is that it's just too expensive. Well, here's the thing. You can grow your own garden. And so, so many of us is in our ancestries. I mean, come on, how many generations back do we go? 1, 2 generations. And that's how everybody ate, was what you grew, living off the land. And so, there's great stores. We have one that just opened up here in Ventura, that we're looking to support local businesses. And if you don't have, the perfect garden spot, you can always get some grow bags for like $10 or $5 or a pot, whatever it is. Or you can build a little garden and, just get some fresh organic, dirt and get some fresh organic seeds and grow all the things that you love to grow. And you'll have access to it throughout the season. And, obviously you can pickle it, or you can figure out ways to freeze it and store it. But first things we'd always recommend, and we certainly teach people how to grow gardens, and whether it's growing hemp or growing tomatoes or cucumbers or green peppers or lettuce, not to mention getting your hands in that good, fresh, clean dirt is so, just good for the soul. Not to mention that you're getting all of those, where your food is coming from, how it was raised, how it was grown, and you don't have to have any pesticides or what's that Miracle Grow stuff or whatever. You can just give it some good, clean water and some sunshine in many cases. And they do have organic supplements and things like that you can feed fertilizer to your plants. I know one of the companies I use is G&B Organics. They have a really great product line that you can find at your local nursery. So another thing on the food and nutrition is to take control of your health, is to grow your own garden. And that also gives you, independence from, as we've all known in these past few years, these supply chain issues that we've had, and our reliance upon other countries. And, we're not even getting into the carbon footprint for them to bring their food all the way over here. But again, we're very big proponents of growing your own garden. And we do have courses, and we do help out with that as well. So if that's something you're interested in, please do reach back. And before, I had one more thing left to cover, but before I go into that, I wanted to welcome Dan to the Miracle Plant podcast and check in, see how he's doing, see if he had any comments or questions.
Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, I was just listening when both you and Janet were talking, and a lot of people, like, this is a gigantic mountain to climb, like changing their whole lifestyle, but they know they need to do it. It's just I'm gonna do it when there's eventually gonna be a day where I'm gonna do this. And when you talk about organic foods, I mean, it's an additional 10 cents to buy organic bananas, or there's not a big difference in price. But it's a slow process. This is a destination. Or this is not a destination. This is a journey, and it starts with one step. So tomorrow, when you go to the grocery store, just instead of getting decide to buy bananas that are organic, and start looking at like whole foods, like just foods with one ingredient. And if you can start adding those into your diets, then before you know it, you build some momentum, and then the next step is not so hard. You don't have to do it all at once. It's just tomorrow it's going to be a little bit better than it was today, and the next day is going to be just a little bit better than it was the day before, and that's how it starts. And before you know it, your diet has completely change to more of a healthy approach of a whole food diet and more plants. So many people have made this transition. It's just that it scares people when you throw out, oh my gosh, I got to grow my own garden. I got to do this. Forget it. I'll do that later. If you say, hey, next time you're at the grocery store, just buy a couple organic things. And then the next time you're there, just start buying like whole foods.
But yeah, I totally agree with that, Dan. When I was doing one individual health coaching, which I found incredibly frustrating, was just like you say, I would ask people, could you eat? When I asked them, for instance, what fruit and vegetables they eat, I would hear like, oh, there's lettuce on my McDonald's burger. And what do you drink? We drink Coke. I mean, so not even water. And so I would ask them, well, could you get one organic apple a day? And that would be their goal for the whole week to the next meeting. And you can't believe how hard that was. Or even look at something. How about adding a glass of water a day? And so we are so enmeshed in our foods that we eat, and a lot of it's habit and our emotional attachment. But also, many of the foods that are produced or manufactured are highly addictive in terms of the sugar content and MSG and different things. And I remember I got addicted myself briefly to eating Burger King breakfast. It makes me ill to think about it now, but they're so addictive. You just like, I couldn't wait for that hot, greasy meal. And so again, too, it's harder than we think because many of the foods out there, especially fast foods and processed foods, are very addictive. So I understand. And that's one reason too, I quit the health coaching individually as a career. And actually I transitioned into what we're doing with CBD, is because Justin always says you help the people that are swimming towards you. Well, the people that call in now looking for CBD usually have significant health issues. Many of them do. And so they're open and they're ready to listen. But many people I was working with that wanted to lose some weight or just smaller goals, their why was not big enough at all to institute them to make changes. And so I totally agree with you, Dan. I say try one thing. I would take them to grocery stores and I'd point out the things, and we had cooking classes to show them, how easy it is to make these simple things. But anyway, but yeah, you're right. It just, if people just start, and like you say, one apple, make your apples organic, make your fruit organic, add fruit to your diet. I mean, there's just so many basic steps that people don't do. And there's some other very good complex health advice that I can give and do give when I'm working with people. But again, just a step, just add more water, eat an apple a day. It's again a good way to get started.
And other things that we can do that are simple, is have a food journal, and that food journal can just be your notes on your smartphone, and you just write down everything that you consumed for 5 days, and check back in and look at it. Part of that helps make you accountable. And part of it is, I think you'd be surprised. I've done that many times with different softwares. One of them that I liked recently was Noom, Noom. It's an app on your phone that you have a food journal, and it actually has all the calories of all the foods you can imagine already loaded in. And so you can do the calorie counting thing if that works for you. But they also talks about the psychology of our the emotional eating and things of that nature. So check it out. I enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. So it was definitely good for me. And all of this that we're talking about, these food addictions and these processed sugars and what have you, is the reason why we made the product Trim-X. Trim-X was a product that was not on our horizon. We as many of us know, we created this oil to heal my son from a severe neurological ailment that no one else really knew what to do. And then people kept finding us when they heard the story. And so as they found us, it was very, very clear that autoimmune diseases, pain, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, neuropathy, all of those things, we were having such great success with this whole plant, cold pressed oil. And so that's when we made the product Alleviate X, which has a little organic infusion of white willow bark along with the whole plant, cold pressed hemp, high in CBDA. And so that's literally how we make products, right? So we just started making products because people kept swimming towards us, telling us what their problem was. And if enough people swim towards us, telling us what their problem is, and it's abundantly clear that our products help so much, then we made a product for them, specifically for them. And the same thing's true with Trimex. This was a problem that, as I've said many times, the average American put on 25 pounds since March of 2020, since all of the shelter in place and the no going to the gyms and the exercise and all these kinds of things. Our routines were definitely broken. And so we created the Trimex to help with those sugar, to break the pattern of those sugar addictions and those sugar cravings. And there are such emotional things that are attached to it. So we have to get control of it as a country, and in the world too. I mean, we'll start here in our own backyard, but that's why we're putting on this Heal the World Live. Is we have access to products and information that you're just not hearing anywhere else, and we're figuring out ways to get people to take this information and to apply it and live it in their lives. So the last thing that I wanted to add before we wrap up for final comments is that we've had Dr. William Courtney on a whole bunch of times, and he was the one that coined the phrase hemp should be a dietary essential, and if you ate hemp every day, you wouldn't have to use it as medicine, hemp/cannabis, whatever you want to call it. And so again, I think it's just such an important part, and we're definitely going to get William Courtney on the healtheworldlive.org. Go sign up there. Whether he's live or recorded, we'll see. He's a little tricky to get on the phone, but we're definitely going to have his research and his brilliance brought in about the food and nutrition of the whole plant, cannabis/hemp. So that's all we have for today. This is all we're talking about. And, we've given you just a preview of what you can expect of Pillar 1, food and nutrition, of the 5 pillars of holistic, healthy living. And you can check out that and get your tickets and get signed up. It's January 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right in the middle of January 2022, when everyone starts to slide on their New Year's resolution. Resolution. So be sure to go check that out. Any final comments before we call it a show?
I just want to emphasize again just how critical our eating patterns and diets and things are. And like I briefly said earlier, we're all aware of climate change and all these horrible things nobody imagined happening to the climate, many of them that appear almost irreversible. Well, the same thing is happening in our bodies. And we see it in terms, like you say, the obesity crisis, where over a third of Americans are clinically obese, which is not just a little bit chubby, but really obese. And we see it too with the huge increase in diseases that we see, and cancers and the pandemic and things like that. We are just not eating correctly, and our bodies are showing us that our life expectancy is no longer zooming upward like we used to be so proud of. Our fertility rates are dropping. For instance, they dropped last year by 38%. And so all these basic things that allow us to survive as humans are being attacked, and we just aren't thinking about it, or not enough people are aware of it to realize we're totally in a crisis. And it's almost the same thing, a tipping point with our body health. It is a tipping point with our climate health. And so we again, too, when we see people improve with diets and adding in the CBDA for all the issues that it deals with, we see there is hope, but it's so hard to get that information out. And so that's, again, part of our mission to heal the world, to have this conference. And so I'm hoping people come and just learn in a very nice, friendly way how they can do better with their health.
You got it. Well, at the end of every show, did you have something to say, Dan?
I was just going to say that I think that the momentum that will be generated during Heal the World Live is really helpful, especially for people that are struggling to get started. When you have a lot of other people and you're kind of in this environment where everybody is positive, everybody's all pulling in the same direction, that's another huge benefit of having this 3-day event. And I really think that's going to help a lot of people get their lives, their health back on track.
You bet. And that's like one of my favorite things that I always say is when people will make one change and because the oil helps so much with pain and anxiety and sleep, that change just like unlocks their, it opens their eyes, like taking the red pill at the Matrix or Alice in Wonderland. They're like, well, what else can I take? What else can I do? And then that's when they start looking at, their diet and water and other things of that nature. So yeah, we look forward to continue to teach. I know that this information is new to a lot of people, and it's not for us to hold on to. We want people to take back control of their health. That's the whole point of putting this on. And we really look forward to empowering more people to take back control of their own health, and then teach their loved ones to take back control and be in charge of your own health. So that's one of the main reasons why we're putting this on. So before we end the podcast, like we do every time, we're going to unmute our mics and say, heal the world. And we're going to do it live now, but you're probably going to be listening to it on a recording in the future. But feel free to join us at home, wherever you're listening, driving, working out, hopefully getting in your at least 20 minutes of cardio every day. On the count of three, we're going to say heal the world, because that's what we're doing here. Healing the world, one podcast at a time, one family at a time, one conversation at a time, one product at a time, one smile at a time. So on the count of three, let's say heal the world. 1, 2, 3.
Heal the
Heal the
world!
world!
Woohoo!
Thanks for joining the Miracle Plant Podcast. We'll be back next week, Saturday at 10 a.m. on Clubhouse Pacific Time. We'll be talking about health, holistic, happy living, pillar number 2. You'll have to tune in to listen. Thanks for joining us in the Miracle Plant Podcast, and we'll see you next week.